Hey everybody, welcome back to JT Channel. Apparently my daughter is going to be joining me for this review and reaction to Saturday night's main event, which just took place last night on Saturday. I don't know where I'm pointing to, but you know how these go. I'm not here to rate the matches or walk you through every single thing. I'll bring up the important parts and you're just going to hear my opinions on them. I think it was a lot better than the last one. It's kind of like an overall reaction. The last one was fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but I don't know. This one just felt bigger to me. Probably has to do with the fact that there were a lot of big men matches, and we'll talk about that as well. Big women matches, too. The last one had the first major Cody-Kevin match, which now we're getting the Royal Rumble thing. We'll talk more about that as well. But we'll just jump right into it. Obviously, the first thing we saw was Joe Tessitore and Jesse the Body Ventura. Never get tired of seeing Jesse Ventura back in WWE, especially since they had such a bad falling out. If you don't know, don't worry about it, but you could also Google it. It's nice to see him back, and he's always doing his Jesse the Body Ventura thing. And Joe Tessitore has taken to wrestling so easily. I didn't know him very well before WWE, other than, oh, holy moly, I forgot what it was called. I had to pause the video. He was the host on there, but of course he's an actual sportscaster, and I think he's taken to wrestling really well. But on commentary, we had Pat McAfee and Michael Cole. Your opinions on Pat McAfee are totally valid, but I love him. And, of course, Michael's the GOAT. And we kicked off with Nia Jax and Ria Ripley. And they pretty much did exactly what you thought they were going to do. They're big women, whatever the women version of big meaty men slapping meat is. But what I really liked was that it didn't start like that. Like, the first two things we saw were a headbutt from Nia Jax during the introductions, which was Lillian Garcia, and they had the mics coming from the roof again, which, again, nostalgia. And then Rhea Ripley did a tilt-a-whirl DDT. And I thought that was really cool. Like, I made a weird noise. I was like, oh, like an old man who just tripped over a Lego. And from there, it was just Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax being Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax. This is the best version of Nia Jax by a long shot. I've been saying that since last year. But she just keeps getting better. And then Rhea, like I said, she did that tilt-a-whirl into a DDT. And then she did the front flip dive off the apron, which she does do a lot, but it always looks cool. They brawled on the floor. They brawled in the ring. Rhea did a top turnbuckle crossbody to the outside. I don't know why I'm gesturing. You know what that is. But it was just a very, very well put together match, especially when Nia did get control and hit an annihilator onto Rhea Ripley's back. And the reaction to that was great. The crowd was like, oh, no, not an annihilator to the back. Excuse me. And then the referee was like, oh, don't do it again. She's like, oh, I'm going to do it again. But then she climbed the rope and hit the D-pad and posed instead of just hit the damn move. So Rhea got underneath her and hit an electric chair, which you have to see. It looked like Rhea, like, I don't know, didn't look good when she started to fall, but when it was executed, it was perfect. I have a cat now. And then when she hit the Riptide, 1, 2, 3, like, we all knew she was going to win. It was just perfect, I think, for this. Yes, I know the match was rushed. But it's Saturday night's main event. It's never going to have massive stakes. It's just going to be a filler, especially with it being a week away from the Royal Rumble. But it was really well done. Again, Nia Jax looked great. I think she'll have a good performance in the Royal Rumble. You could argue that she could win it, I think. Just like the Men's Rumble, there is just a list of women that could win the Women's Royal Rumble. And it'd be like, that makes sense to me. And we haven't had like a major heel win in a while. I know Ronda Rousey won in 2022, but that's a different story. But yeah, very, very good match. I don't really see any reason for them to do anything else for the time being. I don't know what Nia's plans are, what her schedule looks like. I don't even know how to put it, but I hope she does something big at WrestleMania is what I'm trying to get to here. I don't know what it is, but she deserves it. She's done really, really well since she came back. I know people will never forgive her for some of the dumb things she did back in the day, but I have. I met her in real life. She's a wonderful, wonderful person, and this is her best version. And Rhea Ripley, she was already a superstar. I think she's a megastar, but I think she's going to be even more of a megastar by the end of this year, especially when we get to whatever her WrestleMania match is. And then we moved on to the Intercontinental Championship match. Oh my God, Braun Breaker and Sheamus. Jesse Ventura was on commentary for this. He did two of the best things ever, at least in 2025. One, He said that Braun Breaker is in fantastic shape because he's a Steiner, but also because he's a Steiner, he's probably a complete moron. Not his exact words, but it just, Jesse Ventura carrying on kayfabe forever. And then there's something else we'll talk about in just a moment. But this is Sheamus and Braun Breaker. What do you expect from Sheamus and Braun Breaker? It was say it with me now, banger. They just beat the hell out of each other. If you haven't heard Sheamus's interview with Chris Van Vliet, which I haven't watched it either, I'm still getting caught up on Insight, which is a great podcast, by the way. Honestly, I'm not shilling for him or anything, but the Chris Van Vliet Insight podcast is great. But one of the things that have come out from that podcast and a bunch of recent interviews with Sheamus is that when he's in the ring, he's going to hit you as hard as he can. And he wants you to give him receipts. He's like, I'm going to punch you in the face. I want you to punch me in the face. And that's exactly what these two did. They just beat the hell out of each other. There was no ceremony on here. They just fought here. They fought there. They fought everywhere. They threw each other into the barricade and steel steps. And I think at one point, Sheamus just launched Braun Breaker into the timekeeper's area, which caused me to say, holy shit. Which I don't do a whole lot while watching wrestling because I've been watching it my entire life. Almost 34 years old now. And I used to think nothing could surprise me. Even with this match, we've seen Sheamus and Braun Breaker a couple of times. But they managed to pull another banger out, and I was just so happy with it. Gotta talk about the spear on the floor. One of the things, like I said, I'm going to talk about some of the moves. Sheamus got onto the steel steps. Well, he ran and jumped off the steel steps, and Braun just mid-air spear, and that's what it sounded like. Flesh-on-flesh smack. Sheamus' head came real close to hitting the steel steps. It didn't, thank God. But from that point forward, Sheamus was selling his ribs, which ended up costing him. There was a brogue kick at one point where it looked perfect, and Braun hit the ground and kind of rolled towards the ropes, and I was shouting at my TV, don't pin him there. But of course he did, so Braun get his foot on the rope, and this is when the second Jesse Ventura line came through. And he talked about this even after the match. He was like, no, the referee hit 3 and then noticed his foot on the rope. So he was just being Jesse Ventura, trying to stir up trouble. And eventually Sheamus went for another brogue kick, but he couldn't really do it because of his ribs, which I can understand. I can believe that trying to throw your foot up like that can hurt your ribs. And then Braun hit the, super mega awesome 23 miles an hour, I'm going to kill you spear. 1, 2, 3. I wasn't overly happy with that result, but I know why they did it. I have a feeling deep down in my tummy, my tum-tum, if Simon Miller would say, that most likely Sheamus is going to take the title at WrestleMania. I understand that. WrestleMania, probably 70, 80,000 people, biggest event of the year, blah, 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 blah. But it just, every time Sheamus challenges for the IC title for the last 2 years, I have been rooting for him to win it. So when he finally does, it's just like when Cody lost at WrestleMania 39. We were all pissed, but then 1 year later, it just made us that much happier. I'll probably actually cry. Excuse me. When Sheamus wins the Intercontinental title. But it was a really good match. I'm not mad about the outcome. I'm just really, really wanting Sheamus to win that title. I don't know what Braun does between now and Mania, but just keep him as is, have him just keep smashing fools. I'd give him a really good run in the Rumble. I've heard something pitched recently that maybe Sheamus declares for the Rumble and says, when I win the Rumble, I'm going to challenge for the IC title. So maybe Sheamus is in the Rumble, maybe Braun runs in the Rumble, maybe Braun's the one that eliminates Sheamus, and that's what pushes Sheamus to be like, all right, one more chance at that Intercontinental title. We'll see. Then we moved on to the entertainment portion of the evening. Not that the whole show wasn't entertaining, but no match. But Shawn Michaels came out to a huge hometown pop. Literally, San Antonio's where he's from. So that was nice. Love Shawn Michaels. He looks great. Out comes Kevin Owens. Out comes Cody Rhodes. I expected Kevin Owens to be wearing the Bret Hart jacket he's been wearing for the last week or so. Because it made sense. It's Shawn Michaels. It's Bret Hart was his greatest rival. And I thought I was going to say some stuff about that. Or even a Bret Hart t-shirt. But no, he came out wearing a Cody Sucks Eggs t-shirt, which if you know, and if you don't know, go look at Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes' feud from, I believe, the 70s and 80s. It was a callback to that. And they get into it. Shawn Michaels is like, I'm here because Nick Aldis can't handle this, so y'all need to sign the contract. Kevin Owens cuts a promo, talks a bunch of crap. Cody's like, anyway, signs the contract. And then Kevin starts to talk more crap, and then Cody just snaps at him, which I really liked. Cody got that growl in his voice, which if you haven't heard it before, he hasn't done it much in WWE. Usually when he gives impassioned promos, he just kind of talks maybe a little louder, or that slow talk thing he does, you know what I'm talking about, where he says words one at a time and then he gets louder. But this time he had a growl in his voice and he screamed at Kevin Owens. He's like, shut up, basically. I'm done talking to you. I'm done with all this. I don't care about you anymore. I am only worried about one thing, and that's who I'm going to face at WrestleMania. So that was the first hint of Cody being maybe a little cocky, because instead of focusing on the ladder match with Kevin Owens, he's focusing on who he's going to face at Mania because he thinks Kevin Owens is going to be easy to beat. So I think that's a good little side story to tell. Maybe Cody's getting a little too cocky, but I don't see him losing at all. But then Shawn Michaels tells Kevin Owens that he thinks he just sounds jealous because Kevin wants all the things that Cody has. And then Kevin Owens brings up when Shawn Michaels lost his smile, which is always funny to bring up. Then he signs the contract and slams it into Shawn Michaels' chest. Shawn goes to shake everybody's hand. Kevin's like, no. He shakes Cody's hand, and Kevin, like, punches Cody around Shawn. And then he shoves Shawn and goes to give him the package pile driver, which was never going to happen. Cody hits him with a super kick. Shawn Michaels hits him with sweet chin music, which I don't want to be that guy, but it's still just a super kick. But it's Shawn Michaels doing the super kick, you know. So, but he hits the sweet chin music, and it looked great. You know, Shawn's in his mid to late 50s, and he can hit a sweet chin music. I can't lift my leg over a baby gate without groaning. So, I'm just saying. It was a good segment. It did everything it was supposed to do. You love Cody Rhodes. You hate Kevin Owens. Shawn Michaels got his big moment. The ladder match is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to watching and reviewing that as well. Then we got to the match of the night, in my opinion, which is going to be argued until the cows come home, which why did they run away in the first place? Please bring my cows home. But a lot of people aren't happy with the finish. The live crowd was. I didn't mind it at all, but I see the argument, so we'll talk about that when we get to the end. But it was Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu. It was another big meaty men slapping meat match, which I posted on Blue Sky and Facebook that they really should rename this event Saturday Night's Meat Event, because you had the women at the start with Ria and Nia, you had Braun Breaker and Sheamus, you have Braun Strowman and Jacob Fatu, and then you have Gunther in the main event, but still. And, I mean, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They just beat the hell out of each other. Jacob Fatu did a dive at one point, which looked great. One of my favorite parts of the match is Braun Strowman did the Strowman Express, where he runs around the ring and shoulder tackles him. He did it once. He did it twice. He went through it a third time, and Jacob Fatu picked him up and dropped him on the announce table. And that all looked absolutely brilliant. But obviously, I mean, there's not much to talk about except the finish. I mean, watching Jacob Fatu pick up Braun Strowman like he's just another wrestler was really cool. And I always loved Braun Strowman. I've been a big fan of Braun Strowman since he debuted, pretty much. I was raised in the 90s, and when I got older, I watched all the old school wrestling where it was all about big jack dudes. So I became a big fan of big meaty men. Again. So Braun Strowman, one of my favorites. Jacob Fatu, I've been watching on the indies for ages. And while it sounds like I'm rambling, I'm trying to point out that while I love Braun Strowman to death, I love the finish of this match because basically Jacob Fatu got told to quit beating up Braun Strowman because he was doing it too much. He had Braun down in the corner, and he was hitting hip attack after hip attack after hip attack. He just over and over and over and over. And he was connecting with all of them. There was no fake wrestling stuff here. Braun Strowman made sure to lean in and get hit by the hip attack every single time. I think he hit about 8 before not before the referee got involved. The referee started to get involved and was like, hey, stop. It's enough. You're killing him. And after the 8th one, I believe, the referee was like physically pulling Jacob Fatu away, which of course you can't touch Jacob Fatu. And so Fatu threw the referee out of the ring and kept going after Braun Strowman, but that's when the referee called for the disqualification. Now, again, I understand the frustration with that finish, but for me, it just continues to prove how good Jacob Fatu is. I know him pinning Braun Strowman would have been perfect, but one of the things about Saturday Night's Main Event being on network television is you have a lot of new eyes or lapsed fans that are like, oh, maybe I'll check this out. It's on network TV. It's not Netflix or pay-per-view or USA. Maybe I'll check this out on NBC. So you want to get Jacob Fatu over as possible. While him pinning a guy the size of Braun Strowman would have been cool, I think this just got his aura, which I hate that word, honestly, but it got it so much higher. And then after the DQ, all the security comes out, and which, of course, you know wrestling security is completely useless. He hits a moonsault, and then he hits a moonsault, and then he goes to leave, and then he comes back and hits a moonsault. Braun Strowman's face has exploded. There's blood all over his face. It's run down his chest. It is an awesome sight, which is why I can look past the disqualification. It's just another Jacob Fatu thing that WWE has got right. You can argue that there are a lot of wrestlers that WWE took from the indie scene and from other companies, and they just didn't treat him right. AJ Styles immediately pops to mind. But they've done Jacob Fatu perfectly. That's exactly what Jacob Fatu would have done anywhere else. I've watched him in some interesting, horrendous, violent matches. So I think they did that just perfectly fine. Now, what's going to happen with him next, I don't know. Again, another guy I would give a good showing in the Royal Rumble. Maybe Braun shows up and throws him out. Maybe he throws Braun out. I do kind of want them to have a rematch where Fatu gets the win, but we'll see what happens there. I would put Fatu in the Elimination Chamber. I really would. I'd have him do what Braun Strowman did when they did that one Elimination Chamber where it was like they had 7 people. I don't know when that was. That was like maybe that was 2017 when he was on his big run. Anyway, I don't want to get too off track. But I would do that with Jacob Fatu because Braun Strowman in that chamber eliminated everybody but the winner, which means he technically had 5 eliminations, which means he should have won, but because it wasn't a regular elimination chamber, it was a 7 instead of a 6, there was still one more person in it. So you really can't break that record, you can only tie it. I would have Jacob Fatu eliminate 4 people in the elimination chamber and maybe be the last man standing against whoever, whether it's Cody Rhodes or Gunther. I would love to see Jacob Fatu and Gunther, but anyway, I know I'm rambling, but I would just give Jacob Fatu everything. I really would. I wouldn't quite put him in the world title picture. Sorry, I got a little distracted. But maybe put him in the U.S. title picture, and just, if you do that, have him kill LA Knight. Have it be a squash match, honest to God. But obviously, as I'm just rambling on, it's my favorite match of the night. I will always pop for big men matches. You know, that's just what the old wrestling was. And every time you see it still today, it just always gets me excited. And then we got to get to the main event, which was Gunther versus Jey Uso for the World Heavyweight Championship. As I posted around, Jey was never going to win, but I had a feeling it was going to be a really good match. And it was. Just like the opening matchup, they did exactly what they were always going to do. And I kind of feel like that was the whole show, except for Fatu and Strowman, because I really feel like that finish was unexpected. But all the other matches were exactly what you expected. And the contract signing was exactly what you expected. The first half of the match, or maybe up to 4 or 5 minutes of the match, was just Gunther beating the hell out of Jey Uso. But then, you know, Jay's whole point was, you're going to respect me after this. So he started to fight back. Gunther was really good about avoiding the super kick, which Michael Cole put over really big. Michael Cole was great all night. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk about that, but he put over how Gunther needs to avoid the super kick because Jey Uso's super kicks are so dangerous. Eventually means he hit one and got a 2 count. Lots of really good 2 counts. Of course, Jey got to kick out of a power bomb, and it just was what it was. You know, Jey was always going to look really good, but he was never going to win. I will admit that I did bite on one finish, or one part. I think there was a super kick, a spear, and then a kick out. And I was like, oh, that's expected. Well, then he hit another, I think, spear, and then he hit the Uso splash and did that thing where he, like, leans back and pulls the leg, which is how he won the Intercontinental title. And for a brief moment, I was like, is WWE going to do it? But, of course, Gunther kicked out as close to 3 as you could possibly get without it being a 3. And then Jey went for one more spear. Gunther just kind of caught him, lifted him up, powerbombed him, flipped him, powerbombed him again. 1, 2, 3. So the finish was really sudden, but when the 3 happened, Gunther had him stacked up, and when he got 3, he kind of fell backwards and was like, he didn't win, he survived. And I think that's going to do big things for Jey Uso, who is almost the most over babyface in the whole company, and I include Cody Rhodes in that, and Roman Reigns, and John Cena. You know, if you want to put Roman Reigns, John Cena, and then like The Rock all in a row at the Royal Rumble, the fans are going to keep losing their minds, and I still think Jey Uso would get a massive, massive pop. So Jey continues to be really good. I do think he's going to be world champion one day just because he's too over. I just don't know when. I also don't know what he does at WrestleMania, but it has to be big. You know, I was thinking about how the same thing with Jacob Fatu. Jey Uso is just, he's too over, you know? I sit at home and, you know, I yeet with him at home, and I can't wait to do that live someday. So you got to do something big with him at WrestleMania. He looked really, really good here, and the look on Gunther's face, and I think he did the nod that heels sometimes give baby faces when they've been taken to the limit after a match. He was standing at one rope. Jey was down on the ground on the mat, I should say, by the other rope, just worn out from 2 power bombs in an incredible match. Gunther stood on the other side, and I think he was holding his title going. You know, he was impressed, which is all Uso was trying to get across. Overall, like I said at the beginning, this was really good. I do like it more than the last one. I think we got a lot more done. Just like the last one, every single match happened exactly like you thought it would. I do think it did good to promote the Royal Rumble, which is something Michael Cole did all night. Promoted the Royal Rumble, talked about everybody's backgrounds and their finishing moves and what everything means to them. So, you know, put Michael Cole in the Hall of Fame yesterday. Yeah, I guess that's it. I'm really looking forward to the Royal Rumble. And overall, Saturday's main event, I think, once again, just like the last one, was pretty much perfect. It did everything it needed to do. I am really happy with the Braun Strowman, Jacob Fatu stuff. I agree with the sentiment that maybe, just maybe, we should have gotten a 1-2-3, or maybe a submission or a knockout. A knockout would have been cool. Like, I thought that's where we were heading. I thought that he was going to just keep hip attack, until the referee was like, he's knocked out. Winner's Jacob Fatu. But it's okay. We'll fix it. I think we'll fix it. I'm definitely looking forward to the last week before the Rumble. I don't really know what we're going to do, but we're going to get a bunch of stuff taken care of as we move into the Rumble. I will be reviewing the Rumble, obviously, and I'll be doing some picks and predictions later on in the week, because I think there's a lot to talk about with the men's and women's Rumbles, because you've got those matches, and you've got the ladder match, and now you've got DIY against the Motor City Machine Guns 2 out of 3 falls. Everything's lined up, and we just got to get there. So thank you everybody so much for watching. If you enjoyed Saturday night's main event, I can talk. Let me know. Hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe. Like I said, comment down below if you think I'm right, if you think I'm wrong, if you think I'm a moron, if you think I'm a genius. I'm definitely not a genius. And like I said, just look out for my Royal Rumble picks and predictions video coming out in the week, and then we'll all have fun watching the Royal Rumble, and you'll get another one of these in about a week. So until next time, this is JT Channel. I am JT. Enjoy the Royal Rumble next week, and I'll see you on the next one.